A lot can be said about the Far Cry franchise, both good and bad. There are 13 installments of this beloved series, and with the release of Far Cry 6 and what it brought to the table, I noticed that the villain, Anton Castillo, was a bit underwhelming. My main issue is that it felt like he was evil just to be evil, and it made me think about Far Cry's previous villains. Who could forget charismatic villains like Voss Montenegro and Pagan Min? But there is one villain from the Far Cry franchise that really stood out to me. I was 15 when I saw this scene, and I was genuinely terrified. I couldn't tell you how much more excited I was to play this game when we were first introduced to Joseph Seed. But this video is not about how much I love this game and the main villain, no. This video is about the tragic backstory of Joseph Seed and how it led him to be handpicked by God and how that allowed him to gain a cult-like following using manipulation. Join me as we take a deeper look inside the mind of Joseph Seed. As we dive into the mind of Joseph Seed, we must understand his backstory and why having a tragic one can really make or break a person. Joseph Seed grew up in a small suburban town called Rome, Georgia. He lived with his siblings and father until the age of 7 years old. He was beaten by his father for reading a Spider-Man comic. We know this because the book of Joseph says the young Joseph, age 7, received 25 lashes. It was the price to pay for having read about the adventures of a man in tights bitten by a radioactive spider. He bore his punishment and hardly ever cried. And if you want to know why I remember that scorching day in June so clearly, it's because that was the first day the voice spoke to me. The book of Joseph, page 4. This began the voice trend, and he would hear it for the rest of his youth and would begin searching for answers about this voice he heard. It's unclear exactly what he heard or what the voice said to him directly, but from what I can infer, I have a feeling the voice was telling Joseph to kill his father. Not for sure if that's actually what the voice was telling him to do, just a guess because of what happens later on. In Far Cry 5, he tells us that his wife was pregnant and that one day, on the way to visit a friend, she got into a car accident. His wife died, but the baby survived, and while in the hospital room with his child,
so I put my hand on my little girl's head. And I leaned in and I could smell her. And we prayed together. Prayed for wisdom. Prayed for strength. And I knew. I heard God's plan for me. So I took my fingers and I put them on that little plastic tube that was taped to her angelic face, and I pinched it shut. And after a little while, her legs began to kick in and kick. And then nothing. Stillness.
From then on, he claims that he truly felt like he was called on by God. More on that later. That is a very traumatizing event to go through, and most people need a good support system. It's clear that Joseph didn't have that support system, which probably made him believe that he was chosen by God to prepare for the collapse. Joseph's mindset is a result of severe abuse and severe trauma that is left untreated. Knowing Joseph Seed's backstory and understanding that he is more a victim than villain, it led him down a path that would inevitably lead him to cause pain and create chaos to many innocent people. After he tells us about his wife and daughter, he also tells us the reason why he killed his daughter, and is because he was chosen by God. In many ways, one might find Joseph Seed to have a God complex, which is associated with narcissistic personality disorder. Even though he claims to talk to God, I don't believe he is schizophrenic, because mostly, he doesn't show any signs of it throughout the whole game. In the opening of Far Cry 5, he actually tells us that
God will not let you take me.
Please.
I told you that God wouldn't let you take me.
But the reason why I bring believes he is chosen by God as a subtopic is because he uses it as an excuse to do whatever he wants to reach his goal. No matter who he kills or hurts, no matter how many lives he destroys, he will not rest until he reaches his ultimate goal. He even tells us why he killed his daughter. For instance,
These are all part of his test. And we have to prove that we can serve God, no matter what he asks.
so no matter what he does, he feels that he is in the right. Let's take a look at the definition of God complex. A God complex is an unshakable belief characterized by consistently inflated feelings of personal ability, privilege, or infallibility. Such a person will usually refuse to admit and may even deny the possibility of their error or failure, even in the face of complex or evident problems or impossible tasks. Most of the time, they regard their personal opinions as unquestionably correct, rejecting even the brightest advice. Ironically, it's almost as if he feels he is God. Although someone can have a God complex and still be very unlikable, how does he have such a big following and is able to trick so many into thinking his evil way of doing things is correct? How does he maintain his large following? I think the answer lies in his psychology and how he uses coercion and manipulation to get where he is. Manipulation and coercion is one of the many ways Joseph Seed has made such a big cult-like following in the first place. The reason why I say cult-like and not cult is because most cults are not religious, but the way Joseph Seed uses manipulation to join his flock is very similar. On the website Online Psychology Degree Guide, it states that most cults use an us versus them mentality. That's probably one of the reasons that Joseph has been able to maintain his hefty following for such a long time. But that can't be the only reason. I think if one were to say that Eden's Gate is a cult, I would totally understand. What happens when someone finally accepts Eden's Gate? They're immediately love-bombed, just like a cult. Going back to the us versus them mentality, Joseph's argument is pretty compelling, telling us to prepare for the collapse and that the end of the world is near and anybody that stands in our way must be killed. He says this at the beginning of the game.
Everything is unfolding according to God's plan. I'm still here with you. The first seal has been broken. The collapse has begun. And we will take what we need. We will preserve what we have. And we will kill all those who stand in our way. And these, the harbingers of doom, will see the truth. Begin the revenge!
We gotta get out of here.
Most cult leaders are masters at mind control. For example, cult leaders are known to repeat various lies and distortions until members find it difficult to distinguish between reality and cult life. The quote above from the Online Psychology Degree Guide states the biggest reason why Joseph Seed was able to build such a large following. He not only manipulates but brainwashes the people who join him. He makes everyone who follows him believe that he is right and that nothing else matters except preparing for the collapse. In my opinion, Joseph Seed is Far Cry's most terrifying villain in all of the Far Cry series. How he came from nothing and made such a mighty following of people who are devoted and will listen and do anything for him. But is it all bad? Does Joseph Seed have a god complex? Is his morality twisted? Is his trauma an excuse for his behavior? No. No way. He is wrong for all the atrocities he inflicted. He is wrong for making people follow his path of destruction. God doesn't actually talk to him. He was wrong about preparing for the collapse.
The Amazing Spider-Man is the next film.
Hey, I'm sorry. Hey, hi.
We're not going to take questions just yet. At the
No,
end,
I'm sorry. Do you mind if I just quickly... I'm sorry. Hey. Can I say one thing? I think this might be the most incredible day of my life, and I've always wanted to be at Comic-Con in Hall H as Spider-Man with all of you guys. It's always been a dream of mine.
All right.
So thanks for having me. I just want to say a couple of things. I'm Andrew Garfield, and I'm going to be here introducing this panel, this Amazing Spider-Man panel. Stan Lee says that the reason why Spidey is so popular is because all of us can relate to him, and I agree. I needed Spidey in my life when I was a kid, and he gave me hope. In every comic I read, he was living out mine and every skinny boy's fantasy of being stronger, of being free of the body I was born into, and that swinging sensation of flight. And upon receiving his power, unlike most who become corrupted, he used it for good. And I think we all wish that we had the courage to stick up for ourselves more, to stick up for a loved one more, or even a stranger you see being mistreated. And Peter Parker has inspired me to feel stronger. He made me, Andrew, braver. He reassured me that by doing the right thing, it's worth it. It's worth the struggle. It's worth the pain. It's worth even the tears, the bruises, and the blood. And I wouldn't be able to stand here in front of you guys right now without feeling that Spider-Man was here with me, with his reassuring hand on my shoulder, making sure I don't fall over and concuss myself. He has inspired countless people, girls, boys, men, women, all of us. And he has saved lives, and he saved my life. And I owe Webhead a lot, and I owe Stan the Man a lot, and I'm humbled to be here, like you do not know, to share the work that we've done with all of you. And this is my first Comic-Con, and this is definitely the coolest moment of my life, and thank you for being here and sharing it with me.